In the run-up to World Family Doctor Day on the 19th of May, I thought it would be nice to talk about how qualified my GP is. I'm a GP. I might be your GP, I'm probably not. We've all been to see our GP, that's a family doctor for any Americans that might be watching, but it's surprisingly common that people don't actually know how qualified a GP is. Is a GP less qualified than a specialist? Is it a different specialty? How senior is it? Well, how does it relate to a junior doctor? What's a junior doctor compared to a senior doctor? And what's a house officer and a registrar and an FY1 and an FY2 and a CT3, and how does it all fit? 19th of May is World Family Doctor Day, but being a family doctor doesn't really change on the 19th of May, so whatever time of year you're watching this, it still all fits. Family doctors are just GPs. GPs, for any Americans that might be watching, stands for General Practitioner. General being the important bit, we'll get to that a little bit later. One thing that is quite different between GP in the UK and some other countries is the way that training works, and in the UK, general practice is almost kind of a specialty in itself. It's not really a specialty because it is a generalism, and that's part of the point, but we'll come back to that. But in the UK, GPs can deal with most problems that come to them. For by far and away the majority of people that come and see me, I can solve the problem and I don't need to refer to a specialist. In some places, GPs are more of a triage system to send people to the right specialist. And part of the skill of being a GP is knowing what things you can solve and what things that you need to refer on to a specialist for. I had a few ideas for videos for World Family Doctor Day, and in the end I decided it made sense to do 3 as a little mini-series, and they fit together quite well, almost as though I'd planned it. The first one is this one, which is how qualified your GP is. The second one tomorrow will be how to think like a GP, which leads on to the third one, which is probably the most practical and important one, which is how to get the most out of your doctor's consultation. Right, so how qualified is your GP? First of all GPs are doctors. These days, when you go to your GP practice, you might not see a GP. You might see a nurse practitioner or a physician's associate or any number of other things. But if it's a GP, then that's a general practitioner, which is a doctor. So firstly, you have to get to be a doctor. That's 5 years of medical school, possibly 6 or more, depending on if you do extra stuff, but core is always at least 5 years. Here in the UK, most people go into medical school straight after school. Some people do another degree first, but that's a little bit less common. At the end of your 5 years of med school, you qualify as a doctor. You are a doctor, a fully qualified doctor, and you will go into doctoring jobs. When you first start your doctoring jobs, you will go into your foundation training, which is a training, practicing doctoring job. You are the most junior doctor of a team in a hospital. You can't practice on your own independently. Like I say, it's part of a training job, so it's the first of your foundation years, FY1, foundation year 1, then leads on to FY2, foundation year 2, sometimes shortened to F1 and F2. At the end of F1, assuming all goes well, you'll get your full registration with the GMC, but you will still only be able to finish your foundation training in terms of practice. Once you've finished your FY2, then it opens up a few more doors to be able to practice. Each of your foundation years, generally speaking, will contain 3 different hospital jobs. That means you rotate around 3 different hospital specialties each year, so all doctors in the UK go through 6 different specialties as part of their foundation training to get a broad idea for different areas of medicine. So we do have experience in lots of different fields. At the end of your F2 year, there is a natural pause in your training, so that's when some people decide to go abroad for a year and work or something along those lines. But most people then apply for their specialist training program. That's the broad area you're going to go into. So either medicine or surgery or whatever it is, general practice is one of those specialties. Now, it's not a specialty, is it? That's kind of the issue. The G, that's half of our job title, stands for general. Generalists aren't specialists. Now, the problem that we kind of have in how we think of medicine and training and skills is that we value specialists because we think, well, take a cardiologist, for example. Cardiologist knows everything there is to know about the heart. If I've got a problem with my heart, I want a cardiologist on it. I want that cardiologist that knows everything about hearts. Doesn't matter what he knows about lungs or legs or whatever. Heart problem, Heart specialist. Brilliant. That's true, but it's a different skill set. If you've got an issue with something very specific and small, you want to see a specialist. But if your issue isn't necessarily that small, then a generalist might actually be a better way of looking at things, because you can have a more general overview, and we are trained to have that bigger overview, to know a little bit about lots of things and be able to pull them together. So, what is GP training and what does it do and what is it for? GP training is 3 years long. It varies a little bit as to exactly what it contains, but it's usually about half hospital jobs and half general practice jobs. The idea is that it gives you a broad variety of training in things that are important for general practice. So for example, my GP training had jobs in obs and gynae, paediatrics, elderly medicine and general practice. There are other things that it would be useful to do jobs in. I've not done a dermatology job, a psychiatry job, an ENT job, and so on and so on and so on, and the list goes on. But the thing is, as a generalist, the list is as long as your arm. GP training, if you had to train in everything, would be 20 years long, and that's not practical or desirable really. The way that we've got it at the moment is a kind of fairly sensible place to draw that line. And the idea is that your training never really stops, that you finish your formal training after those 3 years, but you will continue to learn things throughout your entire career. So all GPs have done at least 5 years of medical school and then at least 5 years of training as a doctor, working as a doctor. Most have then worked for a lot longer as a GP. So what do we actually learn in that GP training? So there is a lot about actual knowledge of stuff, medical stuff that we need to know for our jobs. But it's not just that. There's also a lot of skills that you need as a GP. So one of the hardest things about general practice is that in the UK at the moment, most GPs only get 10 minutes for an appointment. That's not a lot of minutes for an appointment, and you need to be able to get to the heart of the problem quickly and try and solve it as well as you can, and be able to talk to people and have a meaningful short relationship with those people whilst getting to the bottom of that. It's not easy, and there's lots of things that you need to think about in order to do that well, which leads on to tomorrow's video. How to think like a doctor. How to think like a GP. So we'll be talking about some of the skills that we pick up during training, some of the things that we have to think about, and the kind of things that are running through my mind as we're having a consultation. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, remember, click the like button, subscribe to the channel and share the links, and if you want notifications when I release new videos, click the bell button. You'll get one through tomorrow when I bring out the video of how to think like a GP. See you then. Share the links because otherwise no one sees the videos.